this is kind of what our main discussion is going to be about. So I'll go over it super briefly, and you and I, Jeb and Smay and Tim, we can dive in and see what this means. U.S. Senator Wendy Rogers introduces bill to accept Bitcoin as legal tender in the state of Arizona. The main point I want to bring up here is this right here: the U.S. Constitution. Is it an obstacle for adoption of Bitcoin? Where, well, there is a provision within the Constitution that explicitly excludes the possibility for a state of the United States to adopt any currency as legal tender other than U.S. dollar. So this is just something that's highlighting that it's not as easy as states just taking on, the legal adoption, the adoption of any crypto as legal currency, or as legal tender, because there are things that are the federal government still is putting a lot of blocks in the way of some of these things that need to happen. But the fact that this is starting to be discussed at state level governments, and maybe that can trickle into some preventative measures of how far the federal government go and some of their what I will call overreach and how they're managing the monetary policy of the U.S. That being said, this is Arizona. We also have all the governor candidates of the state of Texas. They're all pro Bitcoin. Yeah. The current governor Abbott is even looking to use Bitcoin miners to bolster the power grid. As you know, I think a year ago, they had a whole power grid failure because it was too cold. But there's a lot of different things going on state levels. And the Florida governor DeSantis, he proposed that this is actually back from December of creating cryptocurrency payment systems for state fees, which is just another one of the incredible uses that different states can take on. As we all know, Miami has, they're incredibly huge proponents of Bitcoin and crypto, and even having the Miami coin and that sort of stuff. North Dakota also, they had a lot of crackdowns on the fracking and all that sort of stuff. But they're actually looking to turn and grow their industry with Bitcoin mining. And we all know as well that Wyoming is also huge on the Bitcoin and crypto front, with a lot of industry developing out there with Bitcoin mining and a number of other parts of the crypto economy developing out in Wyoming. And the last thing that I just wanted to highlight here is that there was I think this bill this bill passed in 2021, November, but I think it's starting to be, it's either starting to be pushed or enforced or something of that nature. But essentially there's been a rule in the US for years, I think since the 70s, that any transaction of $10,000 or more, you have to do what's called a cash transaction report. And it's not necessarily for the state, for the purpose specifically of drawing taxes, but it's more to track money movement, large money movement between entities and people to prevent money laundering and all these things of that nature. But they've now included Bitcoin and digital currencies to be classified as cash, so that they can track any transaction that's being sent between two different entities of $10,000 or more. And this could have wide-reaching implications, but I'm curious. I'll actually ask you first, Tim, because we were discussing this before the stream. But what are your thoughts on this even potentially even being able to be enforced, being that there's so many different exchanges, there's VPNs, how relevant do you think this is? Or do you think it's just another indication of the federal government trying to do anything they can to squash Bitcoin and crypto?
I think that potentially, this is going to get funny. I think that crypto could potentially become like the new drug running. Like, they made it illegal, but how many people kept doing it? And they try to make examples of people along the way, but it's just such a big field. How are they actually going to do all of it? And as I said, what's to stop me from getting a VPN and then interacting? And yes, technically speaking, they could go and chase every single one of my transactions. Again, all of those transactions would have to be over 10,000 for them to have the right to track it and deal with it. But it's just, how are they actually going to enforce what they're saying? And I think what's happening is this is a scare tactic to try to discourage as many people as possible. To try to, it's funny, what they're hoping for is that the United States people will be honest, which is ironic that they think that we're supposed to be honest to them.
That's a good point.
We won't get into that. But, I will abide. I do believe in no matter whether you agree or disagree with your authority. I think, for me being a Christian, I just say, hey, you know what? Biblically, I'm going to obey authority, but I do question it, and I will constantly raise my voice and question its validity, its effectiveness, if it's actually going to happen. I just will not be surprised when they're complaining and saying, yeah, this is not working the way that that's happened for a lot of other things. But that's my opinion. You know, I think some people are going to get busted.
Can I share something with you also right now?
Yeah.
I just pulled this up as a means of exemplifying how ridiculous this is. In 2019, banks basically hit an all-time high of $10 billion in fees and fines for violation of anti-money laundering policies. So the fact that they're even bringing this in, like crypto has any sort of relevance to money laundering, it's such a ridiculous claim, being that the majority of all fines that are being taken on or being imposed on banks is because of huge money laundering violations that they have year over year. And this is fiat currency. This has nothing to do with crypto. So it's just such a stupid sort of attempt by the U.S. government to pile crypto in with this sort of narrative.
There's a reason they call it the banking cartel. It's because they're legalized, but that doesn't mean they act in a way that should be legal. They just do what they do because they can do what they do and because they have the federal government on their side. I think what we're going to see is a similar thing that you saw the war on drugs. You're going to see the war on degens, and you're going to see the war on DeFi. You're going to see the war on decentralized finance. And honestly, I really don't think it's going to be that bad, because I don't think the government is going to attempt to crack down on Bitcoin that hard, because one, they're not going to be able to, and two, it's a somewhat popular topic that you can run and win a campaign on. I really just don't think that the government is going to be that scary as far as how they handle Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but I do think it's something we need to pay attention to. Now, what Kelly was talking about as far as the U.S. Constitution, it's a provision in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5, coinage power. That was put in place during the founding of the Union. There are a lot of limitations on what the states can do, because back when the United States was founded, all the different states had their own currencies, and it was an absolute mess. Having one unified currency was one of the things that brought together the states in the Union. Instead of them acting like 13 little sovereign nations, they started acting like one. So having a central currency was one of the things that brought together the United States, and now Bitcoin might be able to do the exact same thing. Someone made a good point in chat. Nobody pays attention to the Constitution anymore. That's very sad, because I think it is the second greatest document ever written after the Bible. But the fact of the matter is, people do throw it around as if it means nothing anymore. So I do think that that's going to be an issue, and you might see something like this go to the Supreme Court. And frankly, the Supreme Court would probably rule in favor of the Constitution. At least I hope they would. But at the end of the day, you can't stop Bitcoin no matter what the Constitution says. It is here to stay, and it is going to become the legal tender, or at least some kind of cryptocurrency is going to become the legal tender of many different states in the Union. And that is just the way it's going to be. You can't really stop this train anymore. It's moving with way too much momentum. Not even the power or the full force of the federal government can stop it. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into our intermission here, unless there's any final thoughts. Actually, I take that back. We haven't heard from Smay.
I want to hear what
Smay, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think the states trying to adopt Bitcoin is going to look like, and do you think the federal government is going to be pushing back in a big way on this?
Here's the deal about it. I was reading something this morning, and it really kind of made me think about, when you're thinking about what the government is going to do, right? You have to think about motivation, right? What's their motivation to crack down on Bitcoin? And really what I've been kind of thinking about is what they're really wanting is, they don't really care if, you have Bitcoin. What they're worried about is if you're using Bitcoin to make a lot of money and you're not giving them their cut, Yeah. So ultimately, I think it's going to be one of those things that their strategy, and I was reading an article about this, that they're definitely going to declare war on crypto here soon, right? They're going to say, we're going to crack down on it, but what they're going to do is they're going to try to go after stable coins. They're going to go after the means of trading that makes you to where you can trade in and out of cryptocurrency and build a lot of profit and not have to pay taxes and all that stuff. They're going to crack down heavy on that. And then they're going to make it uncomfortable to hold crypto, right? I think in this case, though, especially the other states that are trying to, especially with Arizona, they're not going to let that happen. They're not going to want to let that happen. I think they're going to see that and try to shut that down as fast as possible. But like Jeb said, I don't think this is a long-term narrative. I think this is just there's going to be another administration in the next 10 years that's going to come through here and say, you know what? I'm going to run on Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, like Tim was saying too, I agree with everyone his takes, to be honest with you, is that saying, hey, you really can't stop it. People are going to end up doing it anyways. And then you can argue, well, maybe they'll go after the companies that offer the VPNs that they might try to get them to, open up and give all the data away or whatever. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a futile effort. And I think that at the end of the day, it's just a short-term negative that I think is going to end up not working for them in the long run.
At the end of the day, guys, it's FUD. And what is going to happen is that these states are going to adopt Bitcoin in some capacity. It's already happening, and it can't be stopped, and Bitcoin is here to stay. It really is that simple.
Well,
There's going to be growing pains, but it is that simple.
And the last thing I'll say about the states thing is what I am so grateful for, so grateful, because you guys know on this channel we don't really go into politics. Bitcoin is not a conservative or liberal thing. It's not a Republican topic. It's not a Democrat topic. It is completely new. There are Republicans who support it. There are Democrats that support it. And that whole concept of what Smay said with, whatever this current administration does can be outdone by the next administration. And it doesn't matter whether the next president is a Democrat or the next president is a Republican or the next Senate is run by the conservative side. Because at the end of the day, and we say that word a lot,
At the end of the day,
Bitcoin is an unstoppable train. And they're warming up to it. They understand it. So one of the smartest things I've heard was I think it was Cruz. When Cruz stood up and said, we need to stop talking about something we don't even fully understand. Guess what? Right now, there are a lot of politicians who are actually looking into crypto to understand the technology. Some of them are afraid of it, but the reason they're afraid of it is because they see its doom on their power coming up. And those who do not want to take power away from people, they want the people to have what they want. They're warming up and saying, let's go ahead and do this. And that's what we're seeing in Arizona. That's what we're seeing in Texas. That's what we're seeing in Florida. That's what we're seeing in Wyoming, is we're actually seeing politicians who care about people.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say.
It's rare.
Politicians
But
who
there
care
are
about
some.
people say this is the future. You know the one that I love the most right now? I don't even know if he's going to win. Alan West. I loved listening to him talk about Bitcoin when I was doing some research on what these candidates have to say, because he's not just talking about Bitcoin as currency. He's talking about the technology of blockchain as a whole. And he's talking about the technology of all the other cryptos. When we have politicians who understand the technology of crypto and they're pro, that is a massively bullish sign and a hopeful sign for the future of this country and crypto.
It's a matter of time.
hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely consider subscribing, because we're trying to help you become financially free in these cryptocurrency markets. And also, consider following us on Twitter @CryptoJeb for more updates on the price of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Peace.